It made more sense to align with the oppressed. Like I was the oppressed, I identify as the oppressed. I started learning how to pray. I started wearing hijab even at one point. I learned a lot of secrets of Islam. It's like, using the Quran as a kind of spell book and praying a certain way so you get answers from God directly in your dreams, like that type of stuff. He claimed to be like a descendant of Muhammad, and out of habit, I shook his hand. I reached out and shook his hand, and he recoiled as if I was like a snake, like he was about to die for touching me. Nobody questioned it. Nobody said that sounds a little genocidal. And so that's why I thought your channel, when I first saw you, when I saw you articulating these things, I was like, wow. And you, in a way, inspired me to speak out.
We just have to stay true to ourselves and spread the light as much as we can, and it will hit those who are ready to receive it.
Israel is like the liberal paradise without the crazy progressive extreme left.
Validate ourselves, love ourselves, hear ourselves, like you said, just hold space for it, be a witness to it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Yasmine Mohammed podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. And my guest, Dyan Bitan. Dyan is somebody who I have admired for the longest time. She's an amazing woman, and I'm absolutely sure that you're all going to be blown away and impressed by her today just as much as I am. Dyan is a quantum healer and a former Sufi who helps people break free from limiting programs that keep them stuck in cycles of suffering. So you already know why I love her. In addition to her healing work, Dyan creates research-based content that challenges the appropriation of Indigenous struggles in the U.S. by pro-Palestinian activists. Now, you know the other reason why I love her. Though through both her spiritual work and her Jewish indigeny advocacy, she empowers others to reclaim their sovereignty and think for themselves. And of course, that is the main reason why I love her. Thank you so much for joining me, Dyan. It's an absolute pleasure and honor to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. And that's the reason why I found you too. And I feel like because I was also searching for answers, and I'll get to that later when we get into it, but that's how I found you. So now we're here.
Yeah. There's so much to talk about. I learned so much from watching your channel, and I quickly said, went by research-based, but like you really do your research well. And like you bring up so many historical points that even somebody who's like, my father's from Gaza, I'm born into this conflict, even I was like, wow, I didn't even know that. So like you really are an amazing researcher. And that is what makes me so intrigued by your videos, because there's so much nonsense out there. There's so much, not only propaganda, but there's people out there just sharing their personal opinions and stuff like that. And it really is so like a breath of fresh air to find somebody like you who is sharing actual facts and not fiction and actual history. And it's, it's so great to see, because it's like, it makes you feel safe. You know what I mean? It makes you feel safe when you're on your channel and I'm listening to your videos, because I know, okay, this is a woman who's done her homework, who knows what she's talking about, and I can believe what she's telling me, So for those of you who are not following Dyan yet, I hope you will. I'm sure you will after this podcast, but let's get started. Let's start from the very beginning. Let's take it all the way back. I'm always really interested in how people end up becoming who they are. And so a lot of that has to do with our childhoods, sometimes our childhood traumas, but like, I'm interested in where you grew up, how you grew up, what was your childhood like, and how influential was your Aboriginal identity to you as you were growing up and your sense of self?
Yeah. So I actually grew up, and I told Sarah about this, but I was attacked by Antifa leftists last week, and they tried to dox me. So I'm going to leave certain details out. But I grew up in a village, and it was, feet on dirt type of thing. We didn't even have a road. I remember the road was a dirt road. And it was a small village where my whole family was surrounding me. So I grew up in a very idyllic childhood, chasing butterflies, catching grasshoppers. I would watch the thunderstorms and I would see, the green flashes. It was like magic where I grew up. So I was plucked from this environment when I was younger and implanted in California I immigrated to California. So I am an Islander native. And I grew up in California. So naturally, I aligned with the leftist and progressive, causes because I'm a minority, I'm a woman, etc. And I also brought into the oppressed oppressor narrative for a very long time. And I identified with that for a very long time. And identifying with being the oppressed, do you know what that does to a person? It's like it disempowers you on many levels. So I grew up being afraid of white people. I grew up, I mean, even as a child, I was afraid because a man had come in our village and he was like blonde, blue-eyed, and it was so shocking. I remember everyone was in their house, like staring out the window because he was a rabid dog or something, like they were afraid. So I kind of learned these behaviors early on. Not that they were racist, it was just like, seeing the other, and it was so different, and we were very simple, and it was like very scary to us. And so, when I went to California, it was like a shock to my system. And so like to me, it felt more, it made more sense to align with the oppressed. Like I was the oppressed, I identify as the oppressed. And so I found my community in, the spiritual and healing and truth-seeking circles naturally, because this is where like my people were, my tribe. And I didn't realize, actually, I didn't know any Jewish people. So the anti-Semitism in these groups was rampant. So this is what I like to call out most of the time. I mean, everybody thought that the Zionists ruled the world. Everybody knew it. They talked with confidence. They would just be like, yep, the Zionists, they ruled the world. It was, very lazy. And this was just repeated over and over again. And I think maybe I was in this mindset for 20 years of just like believing this. And the unfortunate thing is in the States, in California, in the progressive circles, they project their oppressor, narrative, their stories onto the Jewish story. And I think that's what the problem is. And we'll get into that too later. So it was at this time when I really got into like these circles, and this is when I realized that spiritual work can be connected to real world events. Like if you pray, it will do something. If so I was part of this kind of collective where, for example, when it was Standing Rock, like the Dakota Access Pipeline, I was invited to a prayer at the beach. And I remember just like really going into myself and tuning into the situation to like alleviate it, because I really do believe that there's a power within us that when we tune into it, it can project like throughout the world. I really do believe this. And I have very specific examples of why I believe this, but we won't go into it. So basically this prayer, I remember doing this prayer, and the next couple of days I seen the news that something had happened, and I was like, oh, something shifted. They ended up building the pipeline anyways, but it kind of alleviated the tension, if you know what I mean. So this is kind of like the beginning of how I mixed spirituality with politics and real world events, and how this all works out. Yeah.
Yeah, we can totally see that trajectory. And I wanted to hear a little bit more about your background, your childhood growing up, but I do understand that you're under threats, and that's unfortunately not surprising to me, as angering and infuriating and frustrating as it is. That's the reality. If you're not going to speak the way they want you to speak, if like
right.
enunciate every syllable the way they want you to enunciate it, then you're going to be attacked.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's something to commend you for too, for speaking up when it is an incredibly hostile environment for you to do so. That's to be such a truth teller is something, that really just speaks to your integrity. So I appreciate you for doing that. So you talked about this spirituality that you started to get involved in, which I completely agree with you, by the way. I totally believe that we have so much more power than we give ourselves credit for. And that people actively want to disempower us because they don't want us to know that. But anyway, tell me about how this search for spirituality led you to Sufism.
Okay, yeah, it's really interesting. So, because I lived in California, I had access to all kinds of modalities. I mean, it's a playground, right, for all of this like alternative stuff. And so I got into yoga, and yoga just wasn't, I'm kind of like a spiritual Olympian. Where when I get into something, I really get into it. And so I was in yoga, and I was like going to yoga like 3 times a day. Okay. Like before work, after work, then I would go to Kundalini after. It was like insane. I was insane. So I saw somebody praying the Salah, and I was like, wait a minute, that's a yoga asana. And so it really intrigued me because I was making this connection that I was like, these are just yoga poses. I get what they're doing. They're circulating some kind of energy. And so I started going to the zikrs, the Sufi meetings on Thursday nights where, you would chant and then have a meal afterwards. And so I just, I got into it. I started learning how to pray. I started wearing hijab even at one point, and I really learned a lot of things. I learned a lot of secrets of Islam that a lot of mainstream Muslims don't even know. So it's like, using the Quran as a kind of spell book and praying a certain way so you get answers from God directly in your dreams, like that type of stuff. And there was a lot of like teachings on demonology and how people get possessed and et cetera. And I really
the reason why mainstream Muslims don't know that is because Sufis are in fact killed for those kinds of things.
Right.
That's all considered witchcraft and devil worshiping and stuff like that. So yeah.
Right. And it's kind of interesting because I spoke with this tarot reader one time, and he was like, and I was telling him, I was like, I don't know if I should be, consulting you because I'm Muslim. And he was like, the most customers, I mean, he was telling me that most of his customers were Muslim. So I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I know that it's haram. So I would go into the mosques and spaces, not ever saying I was Muslim. I would just go there to pray and kind of get involved with the community. And I thought that was my community. I was like, oh my God, I found it. I found my community for life. I really did. And I took it a step further. Like I wouldn't just do the obligatory prayers. I would pray like 10 times a day because I'm crazy, like I said. And I would really like get into it and get the power from these like prayers and how to not manipulate it, but like use it to my advantage to like really like see what this is about. And the people I met were wonderful people. However, I never really got into why Muhammad was so elevated. Like I didn't really connect with him. Like I connect to Jesus more than I connect to Muhammad. Just, I don't know why. It was just like this. There was some barrier there. I just couldn't get into it. And I remember actually a sheikh from Saudi Arabia came to one of our zikrs, and he claimed to be like a descendant of Muhammad. And out of habit, I shook his hand. I reached out and shook his hand, and he recoiled as if I was like a snake, like he was about to die for touching me. And that was a culture shock for me because he was in California, he was meeting us, and then I accidentally shook his hand, and he was just very shook by it, I guess. And so that was like, I was like, oh, there's something weird here. Something weird is going on. And I remember in the Sufi circles, I would always kind of sit next to the men. So the men would sit on one side and the women would sit on the other. But I would always sit at the very edge just so I'm next to the men because I was always kind of rebellious anyways by nature. Like it doesn't matter if you put me in an Orthodox religion, I'm gonna somehow rebel. And what was I going to say? So we would sit around and we would talk about all kinds of different things. And I remember specifically talking about the end of days. right? And so in Sahih al-Bukhari, I think it's like 26:26, where they talk about the hour will be established until you fight with the Jews, and the stone behind which a Jew will be hiding will say, "Oh, Muslim, there is a Jew hiding behind me, so come and kill him." I remember this, and I remember everyone just listened to it and accepted it as fact. Nobody questioned it. Nobody said, "That sounds a little genocidal. That sounds weird." Nobody questioned it. And so that's kind of, the beginning of how it started to unravel for me. I was just like, there's something weird here. And I remember they invited there was an interfaith dinner, and they invited a Jewish man. But he actually looked more Muslim than Jewish. I can't describe it, but he was in there, and I
very
remember
common.
thinking, this, huh?
It's very common. Most Jewish people do, their ancestors are from like Yemen and Egypt and Syria
Yeah.
and Iraq and Jordan and all around. So yeah, that like my father's family, because he's Palestinian, he probably looks like most Israelis that you've met. And it's just, yeah, it's a mix, right?
Right, right. And I just remember thinking, oh, is this like our token Jew? Like, there's one guy in this interfaith dinner. And so, and it's kind of crazy, because the Nova Festival was exactly like this. Like, it's exactly like this. Like, the kids were hiding behind the bushes and the trees
Yeah.
and the stones. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, this is like prophecy. So, I decided to leave when nobody could answer my questions anymore, because I remember I was meditating so much that it opened up so many channels in my like vision, my inner vision, that I started to see like what I call holographic constructs, like the constructs of the astral, where we go in our sleep and our dreams. I started to see like the constructs of like heaven, Jannah, like it was like not it wasn't real. I started to
Did you
see.
see the 72 virgins there?
No, I didn't. But for women, I think they tell you, you'll have like a house of pearls. And I remember asking them, I was like, what if I'm not interested in a house of pearls? I don't care about living in a house of pearls. And nobody could answer that's when they started ignoring me. And that's when I was like, okay, I think it's time for me to move on. And it was very difficult. I mean, at the time, I gave away all of my tarot decks, oracle decks, my crystals, all of this stuff. And I was like, the one fruit I got from Islam was like, focus on God. Okay, focus on the one God. Do not rely on anything else. So that was the gift that I got from Islam. But it was kind of funny, because after I decided to leave, I went back to one of the yoga studios I knew, and they had a cacao circle. And I said, okay, I'll attend this cacao circle. I came in that cacao circle wearing a hijab, and somebody immediately says, oh, I offer toad medicine. Okay, maybe you can't say this on YouTube. I'm not going to say it. But basically, I went the next day, and I had the ceremony, and it took me to the Godhead. It was like an elevator. No, it was like a roller coaster, just shooting me up into like the highest dimension possible for that my soul can handle or something. And I just remember melting into this abyss of light, of pure energy. And I was like, oh, this is what God is. And that's when it clicked to me. I was like, there's, I'm seeing the connections now. Like the Sufi path led me to understanding that there is this connection with God, not to rely on anything else. And then just like this deciding to leave Islam and immediately going to the ceremony, where I was taken to the space that I've been looking for so long, it kind of all clicked, and that's kind of how I started my path into this strange world.
So that was
Yeah,
plant medicine, I'm
and
assuming.
since then yeah.
Okay. So I have a question for you. So when you were first with the lefties in California, you noticed that there was just completely normalized and, casual anti-Semitism there.
Yeah.
Just accepted, like it wasn't even a thing.
Mhm.
And then you entered into the Muslim circles, and you saw that it was in a similar way, probably worse, because now it's including genocidal tendencies as well.
Yeah.
And Did you at any point make those parallels? Like what's going on here? Why are both of these groups so anti-Semitic? And did you know any sort of, were you in the position at that point to push back against either the lefties or the Muslims, or were you
No,
still kind of learning? Okay.
I was still learning. I was definitely just like making the connections. I was like, okay, this is just the way the world is. I didn't meet Israelis until I was dragged into Burning Man in 2017. And so my friend was like, let's go. I got a ticket the same day. I went. Some people plan it for months. I planned it, the same day. And I ended up in an Israeli camp. Okay. So at the
Mhm.
time, I still had these beliefs that Zionists ruled the world and that the IDF were evil, that Israel was the bad guy. I ended up in this Israeli camp. And at this point, I was like pretty open. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to see what this is about. And
So
I
you'd
remember
left Islam at this point.
I left Islam already, but
Okay.
I was already
Okay.
kind of in the medicine circles and I was healing and like starting to heal. And so I go into this Israeli camp and I'm just like, I feel like, that I'm putting up my guard and I could feel like
Mhm.
I'm just going to observe, but I could hear myself like like the gears churning in my head. Like, I'll just see who these people are. And you know what? They were actually like really cool and really nice.
Mhm.
And it really surprised me. And so that was when the unveiling of my beliefs really started. And years later, I ended up in the Amazon jungle in Peru. And I was with these same hippie types that I was used to, my friends, the same people that I would hang out with. And I remember they were talking about conspiracies and they brought up Zionists and how they can rule the world. And at the time, I really still had those beliefs. I had no way of like, I didn't research any of it. Um, but I witnessed the only Jewish person there standing up for himself. And I saw that they were cornering him. And I saw that they were berating him, like really shoving their beliefs, like they were basically bullying him. And I saw a grown man cry, break down and cry, and it triggered something in me. I was like, whoa, something is wrong here. This isn't right.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking I couldn't even step in to help him because I still believed those beliefs. Like I was like, well, maybe they're
Mhm.
right. I don't know. I had no idea. So this is the
Mhm.
point that really triggered me to start doing research. And it took a couple of years. This is how I found you. I was on YouTube
Mhm.
all the time. I was on Corey Gilshusher's YouTube channel. I watched all of his videos. And I remember shifting from like really agreeing to, I could really feel my ideology just like, really shaking my brain. And
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
took a long
Breaking the
time to deprogram
indoctrination.
it. Yeah. And then I started
Mhm.
researching like Islam a little bit more deeply, like in through the lens of the Middle East, like what it was really doing to women. And I just saw all of this injustice. And I was like, wait a minute, like, why isn't anybody else like seeing this? And so that's why I thought your channel, when I first saw you, when I saw you articulating these things, I was like, wow, like this is, and you in a way inspired me to speak out because I wasn't online, I wasn't speaking out.
I didn't
Um,
know that.
yeah. So it's really special for me to be here and speak to you. Um, but yeah, I would say
Mm.
that's kind of the journey that I took to unravel all of this. And that's why when people ask me like how do we get them to see it? I'm like, you can't. It has to be their
Mhm.
choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Or when
Mm.
people, when you spoke about this with this one man standing alone, trying to get them to see his humanity and being pushed to tears, that broke my heart so much because ever since October 7th, 2023, I've just been inundated with messages from people, Israeli people and just Jewish people all across the world
Mm.
who are just like that man, just standing there, heartbroken, sad, confused, scared, and asking me, like, how can we humanize ourselves to these people? You know, how can we reach them? How can we let them know that we're not monsters, and that how can we, how can we? And my answer is the same as yours. Like, you can't. You have to just focus on yourself and continuing to be true to your own values and integrity and honesty, and do as much good as you possibly can, and just be you. And then it's up to others if they're going to break out of their darkness or not. And your story is a true testament to that. So what had happened is that you just ended up hanging out with some Israeli people, and they were kind and warm, and you had a good time, and you realized, wow, they're not evil. They don't have horns. They don't want the worst for me and for all of humanity and all of this propaganda that I've been sold. And that's what made you realize, that's what shook you out of that, you know, cognitive dissonance you were stuck in. And that was my story too. And that's the story of so many hundreds, thousands, probably millions of people. That's their story. You know, we get sold this big, huge, evil, demonic thing that just wants to take over the world and control us all, and blah, blah, blah. And we believe it because good versus bad, oppressor versus oppressed, these simplistic little things are easy for people to understand, especially for children to understand, which is when we get fed this stuff usually. And then you grow up and you meet a Jewish person, you meet an Israeli person, you go travel to Israel if you're lucky enough to do so, you know, and you dance with them and you sing with them and you break bread with them, and you realize, like, wow, these are the kindest, most warm people, you know, and you start to realize it can't be true. Like, all of these lies that they're telling us just can't possibly be true. And so, you know, as much as you want to change other people's minds and make them not see the world the way they've been indoctrinated to see the world, there's nothing we can do. We just have to stay true to ourselves and, you know, spread the light as much as we can, and it will hit those who are ready to receive it, you know?
Exactly.
So
and that is,
go ahead.
That's the best advice, to stay true to yourself. It's cliche, but it's true.
It's the only way. We can't change people's minds. You and I know we were both indoctrinated into different belief systems that, you know, the two that you spoke about were both very anti-Semitic. So, I mean, you were just like, you were like double whammy indoctrinated into this, and you still broke out of it, right? And it took your love of research and truth and honesty that pushed you out of it, because you started to do your own homework, right? But a lot of people just don't do that. They're either out of, I don't know, laziness, apathy, who knows? But a lot of people don't do that, and then they'll just accept whatever simplistic things they hear on TikTok or whatever they see on these placards of people protesting, and they just don't look into it any further. So we can't pry open their minds and force them to see reality and history and the truth. We have to just let them get there when they get there, if they get there.
And actually, there was a man who I met in the Amazon jungle. He was part of that group, and he messaged me and said that he thanks to my videos, that he's not buying into it either. So I've had a few success stories like this. I'm
sure you have a lot more people that haven't contacted you, because your videos are amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. And you know what? As much as like I did all the research, I watched all the videos online. I went to Israel, actually. I think it was 2 years ago. And it was still nothing to like, it was still a stark contrast to what I assumed Israel to be. Like, I was surprised there was a Sudanese community where I can go. There are signs in Sudanese. You can eat at a Sudanese restaurant. You can go to a church that is, you know, like Catholic or Christian or what have you. And it's like amazing. And actually, Israel is the ultimate liberal paradise. Like, women, you know, can walk around freely. You can walk around. It's almost as if, without the craziness, okay? I feel like Israel is like the liberal paradise without the crazy progressive extreme left influence, even though there are those still in there. But the majority of it, it's like everybody's just relaxed. Everyone just wants to have a good time. And you know what I noticed is that the one palpable thing that I really noticed about the Jewish people is that they're full of life. Like somehow,
100%.
I don't, it's because they're always on their toes. It's like, the next day isn't guaranteed for them. So it's like it's like you could tell that even subconsciously they're living their lives to the fullest. And the people I met anyways, okay, I'm not speaking.
No, that's completely my experience as well. That was totally how I felt. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I went to all of like the nature sites there in Israel. I went to Ein Gedi, and that's when I realized I saw this sign that was basically saying that Israel enacted a law for nature to have the right to water because there's a stream in that oasis that had dried up. And I forgot what year it was. I think in the 50s. They implemented this law where nature had a right to water. So nature had to share water with people, or people had to share water with nature. It was a thing. And so the stream started flowing again. And that's actually when I realized I was like, they're the true stewards of this land because they care, And that's that connection again, like to what I've observed in the Dakota lodges and the sweat lodges, and just like in my general connection to the earth, I was like, this is some native stuff. This is like what you do. And that's when
they're indigenous to that land.
Recognize that Jewish people are indigenous to their ancestral homeland. Like they care for it. They're there, like toiling their hands. They built Tel Aviv through blood, sweat, and tears. And it was a swamp before, right? It was like they planted millions of eucalyptus trees to absorb all the water and de-swamp the place so to get rid of the malaria. Like, I'm just like, what kind of, you don't do that unless you really care for the land. Like you have some connection, like a deep connection to it.
And to find such creative ways of doing all these things too, ways that the rest of the world, got to learn from the technologies.
And all kinds.
Yeah. And what you were speaking about, how diverse Israel is, I think a lot of that has to do with, shockingly, the diversity of the Jewish religion, which surprised me coming from Islam, which because you're also familiar with Islam, how there's like one way of seeing things, one way of doing things. I thought it was so beautiful how Jewish people, like one person could be Orthodox and the other person be an atheist, secular Jewish person, and then the other one be a gay Jew, and everybody is welcome to the Shabbat table. You know what I mean? Like it's like it was so evolved. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is amazing. Like nobody even asks, nobody even cares. Whereas with Muslims, it was always very like, how not just are you wearing hijab or not, but like, is what kind of hijab are you wearing? Are you wearing it with pants? Are you wearing it with skirts? Are you wearing it with abaya? Is it black? Is it niqab? You know what I mean? Like there's so much policing going on all the time of individual people and their families and judgments and stuff like that. Whereas with Jewish people, like everybody is just living their life and choosing to practice as much as they want to practice or not to practice at all.
Right.
And everybody is still very welcome. And that what you said before too about how they value life so much. Yeah, 100%. There's no way you can go to Israel and not feel that immediately. And that's because they're constantly under threat. There's going to be somebody with a knife, or there's going to be a bomb falling. There's bomb shelters everywhere. I'm sure you saw this. There's no way you cannot see it. Everywhere you go, you can't take a step without knowing like arrows pointing you to the closest bomb shelters. So when you're living under that kind of intense, trauma, basically constant cortisol running through their systems, then I'm in awe of them that their response to that is to live life to the fullest every single minute and to find joy and love in every moment, rather than to feel despondent or to feel victimized or to feel angry. They just channel all their energy into
Yeah.
such a positive, beautiful direction. And I honestly, even sometimes a little bit too much, where I just feel like, you're allowed to be angry. Like you're allowed to be sad.
Yeah.
Like you don't
Yeah.
have to constantly, but it's such a push for them to like just be grateful at all times. And I am really in awe of their resilience.
Yeah,
for
me
sure.
too. I started to, I mean, I went from the journey of demonizing them in my mind to like really true, like appreciating who they are. Like
Yeah.
it's an inspiration to me,
Yeah,
you know?
me too, 100%. As an ex-Muslim, such an inspiration to see these people that I know how badly so many, millions, if not billions of people on this planet want them dead. And to see
Right.
them thriving like that, it's wonderful because as ex-Muslims, they also want us dead, right? And so it's so beautiful to see the underdog, the David thriving so much against the Goliath.
Right, exactly.
So I wanted to ask you about your Indigenous advocacy and how you started to make the parallels between Israel being indigenous to, or sorry, Jewish people being indigenous to Israel in the same way that your people are indigenous to the US, and making those parallels and having those conversations. You spoke to us a little bit at the beginning about obviously the death threats and the doxing and the things like that happened because of your speaking out. But can you tell me when you started to make those parallels and what made, it must have been a difficult decision for you. Was it a difficult decision for you, or was it just like an impetus, like you're just being pushed by the truth to start speaking out about these parallels? What did that cost you, or what was that experience like?
I wasn't afraid to, when I'm inspired with something, so I wake up in the morning, I get what I call downloads, like just shoot, ideas in my head. I'm like, I have to make a reel about this. So that's kind of the process, right? Right. And yeah, of course, like it started to make sense to me. I was like, I didn't know that there were only 16 million Jews in the world. I had no idea until and then I was like, wait, that's kind of always how it works. The majority always bullies the minority. And that's how it is with, ethnic minorities all around the world. And so that parallel was easy to make, except, in the progressive circles, they pinned the Jewish people as the colonizers and,
Yeah.
so there was a lot of disconnect there. And then when I going to Israel myself to see it for myself and to seeing how they work with the land and how they preserve the land, I was like, this is indigenous. Like this is what indigenous people do. And so, and it's the same where I live now because I'm living in Mexico with the Mayans. They actually love Israel also, whereas like the progressive leftists and that crowd, and I don't mean to pinpoint progress, and they're kind of like loud right now, right? So there's also like the extreme right. I'm not going to talk about them, but they also come in here and they bring all of that propaganda here. They have posters. I'm going to show you.
It's important to note. It's important to note how their rhetoric is mirroring the rhetoric of the far right.
Yeah.
KKK.
Yeah, it's a horseshoe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so in town, they hung up these posters that showed an Israeli soldier going on vacation and that he's a war criminal and to report them. This is a Jew hunting poster.
Wow.
And so I'm ripping them off in town. And it's not the Mayans who are doing this. It's the people who are coming in here with, I call it the neo-colonialism mentality. Like imposing these beliefs to the indigenous population, which are the Mayans. And but the Mayans are proud Israel supporters. They have their flags up here all the time. So in that way, I feel like validated.
Yeah, they get it.
It's wild.
Yeah, yeah. That is wild. And I assume you've got like a really difficult road ahead of you because these pro-Palestinian movement has really kind of sunk its teeth into the indigenous movement in the US for a very long time. So they, like you said, they've already sort of situated themselves as the oppressed, as the ones who are being colonized. So you've got a big job ahead of you.
Right. I've already lost a lot of friends. Friends who identify with indigenous struggles, okay? Lost them because immediately they were just like, yeah, Palestinians are the oppressed, da 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 da. Um, I would say I lost 90% of my friends, maybe even more. I have, but I'm making new ones. I'm making amazing friends.
Yes, that's right. You
So,
are. And you're making new ones today. So let's start to meet some of those new friends now.
okay.
We're going to start with you, Courtney.
Hello. Hi, Diane, and hi,
Hello.
Yasmine. Um, so nice to meet you. I watch your content all the time. It's so incredible. And you're doing amazing work for the Jews, and I really appreciate it. I'm Jewish. And yeah, I'm a Zionist. So it's been difficult. You kind of just answered it, but a few of us wanted to know, obviously, during this time, a lot of the Jews and Zionists of the world have lost a lot of our friends, but like pre-October 7th friends. And a lot of us have lost parts of our communities because of it. And I just wanted to know how you process that, how
Mm.
you felt when it kind of started happening, when people started dropping off, and also how your Indigenous community feels about you being so pro-Israel and Zionist. Yeah, that's my question.
Okay, so I deal with it in a human way where I'm just like, I let my ego go off the walls and I'm just like, F them, whatever. But I do hold spaces for the Jewish collective now, like where we do like group healings. I use a modality that's compassion based. So I'm really big on healing, right? Because I feel like this is a spiritual war, and the more we heal ourselves, the better the world will be. So I hold these group healings to show people how to heal and neutralize these energies like within them, these emotions that are totally valid and they should be expressed. But the idea is to move them through so it doesn't become part of your ego, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So, self-compassion, give yourself compassion. And when I say that, I don't mean just like, it's not just like some woo-woo stuff. There's actual methods that you can use on an emotional healing level where you can go in and give yourself self-compassion. Another one example of that is Ho'oponopono. Learn how to use that and direct it towards yourself to help you transmute and transform these energies, and so it doesn't get stuck in your body. There's also,
Mhm.
I feel like there's a lot of tricks in the books. There's a lot of tricks I know up my sleeves, like right now. Like if you're feeling anxiety, I discovered this on my own, but I didn't realize they were actually real. From Chapman's points, it's called like they're called sore spots. So when you're feeling anxiety, you can actually massage these spots. And if you're feeling pain there, that means there's stuck energy. So it shouldn't hurt. Usually mine don't hurt, but I'm feeling a little bit of soreness here. So that tells me that there's some stuck energy that I need to release. So you just massage it to the point where it dissipates and flows out.
Wow.
So there's a lot of I use a lot of practical spiritual emotional healing tools to like deal with these things. And I'm also trying to help the collective do it. What was your other question about the last part where you said how I,
Your like the Indigenous community, like your community specifically,
right,
like where you grew up.
right. So, I would say my whole family understand, like my whole family, because of all the healing work that I've done over the years, the ancestral healing, we're all on the same page about everything. Um, and also like my own community, I just kind of left them alone. I stopped trying to convince them about anything. I don't know if they see my stuff. I don't know if they've unfollowed me on social media, what have you. But like I said, I'm focused on making new friends, and I'm part of this group now called Indigenous Bridges, and it's by Ateret Shmuel. She is an indigenous activist, like, but she's Jewish, and she's an international, and you'll find her stuff on YouTube. And
I don't know, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and she's really cool. So I hooked up with her, and I'm getting to know, like, I'm reaching out to other indigenous people. I don't have to like stick to like my group of friends. Like it's actually quite limiting. So it's good in a way that I'm outreaching with a bunch of other people who see things from my perspective, who learned things too.
Yeah.
So we're all in this journey together.
Yeah, absolutely. I just saw someone commenting saying that you do online healing sessions. So I would really love to join that. And like I agree with you. Like I've started making a lot of new friends as well. And like also I think channeling that energy of like rejection from people into like activism is such a important thing as well. So you're doing amazing work. I also just wanted to know quickly if you would ever do any content like with any of the Mayan people you're living with and about their kind of support of Israel, if they are ever open to that.
I was thinking about it. I was thinking about even trying to see if we can mobilize them, but there is a man here. He's Israeli and he's lived here for 20 years. He's really good with the Mayan people. Like he volunteers at the hospital. He gives out food. Like he helps at children's schools, etc. Like just being Jewish, you know. And they told him, they came up to him and said, hey, you know, we want you to know we don't believe what's on the news because I see that what you're doing here. And we know it's not true. So that's kind of like, you know, and I don't know how else to take it. He's kind of like my outreach with the Mayans. Like he has a connection with them. He has business with them also. So, you know, I personally like don't know how far they would take their I just know that they just support Israel and they wave their flags. I don't know what, you know, they're not going to go against the leftists. They're not going to try to riot or do any of this stuff because that's what the other side does. So they're just kind of watching it in the sidelines too. Just like, oh, if it really comes down to it, if you guys, you know, then they will. But the Mayans here are pretty strong. But so far, it's been like self-contained, you know, and they just kind of let it fester, but it hasn't gotten to a point where it's like a real problem here, even though we have Jew hunting posters up in town.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, yeah, if they're ever open to it and they just a small like kind of piece of content, I think that would be so cool.
Yeah, I am putting together a montage of Indigenous allies speaking for Israel. So that's in the works.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for everything you do, Dyan. You're incredible. And just, keep going. You're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. So, Dyan, we've got a question here from somebody who didn't want to come on camera, so I'm going to ask it for them. They want to know about your connection to your own ancestral traditions. So you spoke a little bit about that now when you're responding to Courtney.
So my own ancestral traditions, I kind of had to find it on my own. It's been lost because we were actually colonized for hundreds of years. And I didn't realize that my dad's last name meant spirit of the plants. And my mom's last name actually means black magic, but let's not get into that. But
wow, that's you. So together the two. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
How perfect.
And I was wondering, I was like, what kind of last name is this? Anyway, so I kind of had to piece it together and only slowly, like when I was starting to show my family that I was interested in like the healing arts, that's when they were like, oh yeah, you know, actually like we do have this in our, it's kind of like I have to bring it back. And my connection now to my people, I mean, their traditions are lost, completely lost, eradicated by colonization. I can't even say there's one thing that my family even does that is related to what we used to do, you know, as a tribe. So I'm just kind of going along with the punches. I'm creating my own nativeness, if that makes sense. I'm bringing it back. And a lot of people I find are resurrecting that too in their own lineages. So, and I'm teaching, I have children, so I actually teach them like my ways and how to like do this healing stuff. So I'm passing it on to them. So I have to recreate it. There's nothing that I can, you know, take from my ancestry that is passed down from the previous generations. I kind of had to start from scratch, if that makes sense. And so when I enter these spaces like lodges, and communing with other Native Americans or other types of natives, it's like I feel like there's a common ground there, but it's, I mean, we all have different traditions, but I can borrow from their traditions if it resonates with me, if that makes sense. It just kind of comes back as a memory.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense, and it's really beautifully said. And we have the same thing going on here in Canada, where our Indigenous communities are resurrecting their traditions as well, and finding ways to make them kind of fit with our current way of life. Because you know, you maybe can't practice things in the same way that you used to practice them before. You know, like if you're going fishing, for example, you can't like thank the fish directly face to face, you know what I mean? Like the way that you could before, but you can still, even though you bought your fish from the supermarket, you can still have a moment before you dig in and start eating where you know, mindfully appreciate the people and animals and the plants and everything that is sustaining you. So yeah, very similar work that's happening here in Canada, and I'm sure in Australia and everywhere else where Indigenous communities were colonized as well. So thank you for that, Dyan. Next we have Donna.
Hi, everyone. Well, it's very supportive sounding. Your intention, your experience, like as a Jewish person who's been shocked and horrified at the hate directed at Jewish people. It's I can't even explain how overwhelming, and how it feels like you're getting arrows shot at you. It feels poisonous, it feels very poisonous. And what I wanted to ask you was, so my friend is a Reiki master, and I'm sort of a Reiki learner. And we've been getting together, and in fact, we're getting together tonight. We just send energy to the planet. The last time we got together, we picked 3 sort of topics of, one of them was to send unity to the Jewish people, because, I know it sounds to many of you like we're all like this or we're all like that, but we're also kind of divided as well in many ways. And we're just kind of a bit of a representation of some of the, political division, and, people that hate the leader of Israel, people that don't. And I mean, when you're divided, you never have strength when you're divided, and we can't afford to be weak. It's, the hate is coming in heavy. So my question for you was whether you would ever include other people to do a collective of sending energy for healing, because the more of us that are focused on elevating and providing protection and love and sending healing to, protect Israel, to protect the diaspora, to protect the allies, and to try and bring some balance and rationale to people to understand that all of their hate it's not founded, like directing it at one group. It's just unbelievable to me. And just sort of like having the grounding to be able to say, okay, I am okay enough to be sending out, that the other thing. So, anyways, I guess what I'm asking is if you ever offer it within your collective, is there a way for those of us who also want to participate? We may not be at the level of healing that you're at, or the level of power, or the level of giftedness, but I believe we all have the capability of, being of pure spirit to want to elevate the love and the planet.
Well, I'm glad you asked this or brought this up, because I do have a gridwork team. I have an energy team that I've assembled. And they're really powerful, highly gifted psychic women. Okay. Some Jewish heritage, some are not. but they understand and they see what's happening. So we've been kind of in active duty the last several weeks. Like we started with Gaza actually, and you know, clearing the energies there, just like making sure that all the right energies are circulating. And it's not just for Israel, but all the surrounding countries, because it's a mess, right? It's a hot mess. So we've been working through them. And, you know, after, like a few days after we did that, Gaza had those protests and they were starting to rise again. So we're trying to do these like really high level energy work. We call it grid work because we're working with grid points around the world and the energetic systems and et cetera. So this is kind of what's happening in the background that I don't really talk about because it's crazy sounding. But there are people who are, you know, putting up shields, who are transmuting energies into missiles, and like there's Baphomet. It gets crazy, but like there's all kinds of things in the background that it just sounds nuts when I say it. It's very surreal and fantastical, but like it seems to be helping. Like there are times where I doubt it too. I'm like, am I just crazy? Am I just no? But it's like we have a team. We're kind of doing this. Like the CIA has a psychic team that remote views. Okay, like this is a thing. So this is my little team that's working for the war, and they understand what's happening. One of the girls, she's Mexican, and she tells me, she's like, it's a full-time job trying to keep the Jews alive. You know, that's. And so we kind of joke about that. But it is crazy. And I see it completely as a spiritual war, as much as it is a religious war, a political war, geopolitics, what have you. It's all the same layers, all the same trauma, you know, ancestral trauma that we've been recycling with anger, shame, guilt, and resentment. It's all resurfacing again, getting triggered. And you know, it's funny, you described that like as a Jew, you feel like arrows are being shot at you for all sides. I literally use the same words because when I was attacked by the leftist anti-Zionists, what triggered it was the night before, I decided to focus on the entity. It's called an egregore that was created by the collective anti-Semitism throughout the centuries. So it's a big monster, right? And so I start focusing on this energetically. I start to decode it. There's like layers of demons. There's lower astral beings. There's mind viruses, mind parasites. I have it all written down, what I found. And so I work on this thing. And the next day, I got confronted on the street from pulling this poster down. I got attacked by the leftists, like on my page. And I had to like really put up my boundaries. And I used those same exact words that I felt like I had arrows coming from every direction. It really felt like that. So it made me feel what it was like to be a Jew, to be hunted, because I needed to feel it on this level so I could transmute it, you know? So that's kind of how it works. That's what I'm kind of doing. I'm using myself as kind of like a channel, like an instrument to see what these energies really are and how we can like move through it and transmute it and push it through into the collective. So that it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well, if there are ever, I don't know how, I'm sure we'll find out at the end how to follow you, but if there are ever ways where others can join in like a group healing or anything like that, I would really like to be part of it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, reach out to me.
I will. Yeah,
yeah.
I'd love to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just in the comments here, Donna, some people are sharing some links with you. With Dyan has a webinar coming up about Jews as Indigenous people. So there's a link to her Instagram there.
Okay,
but yes,
great.
we're going to share that for everybody, and that's going to be in the what's it called? Description.
Right.
In the description in YouTube, we'll be sharing all of Dyan's information as well.
Thank you.
Oh, great.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So when you were talking about getting attacked with all of these arrows and knowing what it feels like to be a Jewish person, I was going to say something that we didn't really talk about now is because we're talking about the present, but it's the generational trauma that's just been continuing all the way back over 1,000 years with Jewish people. Like they literally, there's not a gap in history where they're not being hunted and shot with arrows. So it really is a full-time job. It's not just one lifetime, you know what I mean? Like we get lifetimes of people in this full-time job. So yeah, it must make your work.
I call it the persecution imprint. So that's the name I like to call it. And there's a scapegoat archetype there. And funnily enough, the scapegoat came from Jewish traditions. The priests, the high priests, used to take a goat and they would cast all their sins on this goat and send it to the forest. Or I don't know what else they would do to this goat, but it came from the Jewish tradition. But it's just funny because, I mean, it's not funny, but like the Jewish people have become the scapegoat of the world, and that's why it's just like everything they do, even if it was something good, even if it was to bring aid to Gaza, it's not the right brand or flour. I don't know, like they'll just say
they'll find a way.
They'll find a way. So
my goodness. All right, last but not last at all. Next we have Sarah, please.
Thank you, Yasmin. Thank you, Dan. So very convoluted kind of question in my head right now. Yasmin, for me, is in the business of healing. She has helped me heal tremendously, despite all the odds in this universe. So, as you know, Israel started eliminating a bunch of leaders in the Islamic regime. That I was born in Iran right at the beginning of the 8-year war with Iraq. So for the past 4 days, I've been having flashbacks and getting triggered, and then names come up that might mean nothing to the Westerners, but they are associated with torture in 1988. They are associated with mass graves in, I don't know, the summer of 88. They are associated with forced confessions on TV. They're associated with like there are so many different things that come up, and I have had a bunch of panic attacks.
Yeah.
Where I thought, I'm okay, I'm fine, that's okay. These people are dying, I'm happy. And then I start hyperventilating. I can't breathe anymore. I can't focus anymore. It's like, what is happening? And then people keep saying, oh, you are a Zionist. Why are you so happy? Why are you, these people are attacking. This is a war. Why are you so happy because of the war? What's wrong with you? And then I started thinking, what's wrong with me? Like, but there is something like, I feel cruel for being happy that these people are gone and dead. I feel there's like, why am I feeling like this? And I need to heal. And I realize the more I try, the worse it gets, because it feels like there's no healing happening. And I need real practical solutions, like real things that I can actually apply to my life. And it's not like step away from it because it's still happening. My whole family is in Iran. They're getting bombed.
Right.
And yes, I'm happy that the regime is getting eliminated, but there's also a war happening and people are dying. Do you have any practical pointers, anything that we can do that would help
like I
us?
said, yes. So like I said, the panic, learning how to detach at that moment and just like having your observer self take over. So this might take a little bit of practice, but just use your awareness like, oh, I'm really like getting caught in this, but then literally take a step back spiritually and then try to see what you can do. So like I said, the panic attacks, this is really going to help, like massaging these points, like do it every day, 3 times a day for a week until the points stop hurting and they dissipate, because it's going to help release that energy. There's you can learn EFT, like emotional freedom tapping, to dislodge energies. And personally, I would learn how to do that and do it for maybe 20 to 30 minutes on a particular topic. The anger and the confusion that you feel, you're going to have to tap it all out. So this helps, discharge it. But what I really like to do, and I do this in the group healing sessions, is I do the compassion thing. So if you know Ho'oponopono, if you know like how to give yourself self-compassion, that is the best, from what I've found over the years, that's the best way to heal ourselves on a spiritual level. Self-compassion, like giving yourself compassion, like, I'm so sorry that you're so angry right now, like being a witness to your own anger, like allowing it to pass through, and like just holding that space for yourself, if that makes sense. It's kind of like you're taking yourself as your baby self and you're just holding yourself, that kind of energy. You have to like parent yourself. You have to be you have to give yourself that hug, that love. This is what it's made of, like. And this is what will help you transmute these energies and not just like suffer through it, but you have to like actively be aware of it and when to step back and when to go in and give these parts of yourselves tenderness and witnessing it. Witnessing it is like sometimes all it needs. Like I acknowledge it. I acknowledge this anger and I'm so angry and allow it to come up and so it could be released.
I love that. Thank you. Yasmin has been helping me love myself so much.
Yeah.
It's been transformational.
Yeah.
That's like the way everything you're talking about would not have made sense a year ago. Now I understand because she has helped me see that I can do it and I'm not upset that I'm angry. But at the same time, there's this feeling of guilt, this deep feeling of shame and guilt that why do I feel so angry? Why do I feel like this? Why am I happy that these people are dead? Why do I not feel like everybody else? It helps a lot. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. And you can use that. So it's very basic, right? Like I feel ashamed, I feel guilty, I feel shame, I feel angry. Start with the basics and just give that love. Like it's okay. Like the way EFT works, for example, it's probably all the same process, right? Just different modalities. So EFT, you start with acceptance. Like you tap your karate chop points here, and then you say, even though I feel guilty and ashamed that I feel this way, I love and accept myself anyways. Even though I feel like confused about what to feel, I love and accept myself anyway. So you do this, like I said, you can look up the resources online. There's people on YouTube all the time teaching this. So you do this acceptance part, and then you do the bashing part, which is all the points, all the EFT points. And that's when you really like express everything you need to say. Don't hold yourself back. You know, this is where you say like whatever it is that wants to get off your chest, like go ham and just do this. And I would do this if I have a particular problem. You can actually use this for abundance too, and like getting more followers, what have you. Like people use it all the time. But like you do this to a problem and you neutralize it. You do this for 20 minutes until your arms get tired, until tears stream from your eyes. Like it's really effective when you get it to that point. Like you don't do it just for 3 to 5 minutes. It's like you really get into it. And that's what really like moves it all out. And it's deep because like you said, it's ancestral. This stuff is like generations and generations just compounded up, you know, to us. And like even the Jewish people, those who have direct ancestors who suffered the Holocaust, their ancestors didn't just like hold it trauma, but it's like the next generations have to fix it. They have to be the ones to process it. Like that's just the way it works. Like science has said that our DNA can be as far as 13 generations back, 13 generations going forward. It's like it's all connected. We're all connected. So the things we're experiencing now are just remnants of ancient energies.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Yasmin.
Yeah, of course. Dyan, I think you made such a really good point. You said it so quickly, though. You said you made so many good points where you talked about mothering. And I think that was really what did it for me, is because as a mother, if my child was coming to me feeling happy that the Islamic regime is being annihilated, sad that people are being killed. I mean, Sarah's family is in Iran, right? There's family that she can't get a hold of. So it's very, very close to her. And, you know, you've got your child in your arms crying and devastated, confused, feeling all of these feelings, multiple conflicting feelings at the same time. So when I feel that way, I hold myself the way, because neither Sarah or I had, you know, ideal mothers. So we have to be the mothers to ourselves that we didn't have, and hold ourselves, validate ourselves, love ourselves, hear ourselves. Like you said, just hold space for it, be a witness to it, and just say like, I understand, I hear you, I see you.
Right.
It makes sense that you're going to be feeling sad. It makes sense that you're feeling happy. You know, all of these different feelings that you're having make sense. They don't have to all, you know, you're asking yourself, why, Sarah? You don't have to answer that question, why. That's not going to get you anywhere, right? Just accept it. This is the way it is. And even if they're conflicting things, it's okay. Mm-hmm. Just love yourself through it, accept yourself through it. Like Dyan was saying, I love and accept myself anyway. And let all of these feelings process through you. If you stop them and you say, oh my God, why am I feeling this? Then you're just torturing yourself. And
You create that resistance of releasing it. Yeah.
Right.
It is, the inner child work, I would say is my go-to. It's the bread and butter. It's like, if you heal your inner child, I've done experiments where I went from 0 age to 1 age to 2 age, 3 to all of my formative childhood years and just went through all the traumas and like went through it one by one, scrubbing them, I don't know, scrubbing them is what I would call it. But going through like if you heal your inner child, what you do is you heal the core of your soul. It's like your innocence. It's like the incorruptible soul. So when you heal these fragments, all these like little aspects of yourselves that feel a certain way or feel rejected, feel ashamed, feel guilty, what have you, it's going to free up your soul in a big way. So I would say, yeah, like the mothering aspect is really important in that you have to like learn how to be your own mother, right? And when you heal this aspect of yourself, like I also did an experiment where I healed like my mother and my father, where like because your mother and your father are your imprints for your own inner polarity, your masculine and feminine polarity. So when you heal the traumas that you experience with each one of them, what you do is you balance yourself again, and all of these other distortions will fix itself. It'll self-heal. So like if you have issues with the feminine, like for me, when I was growing up, I hated women. I couldn't stand the sound of it. Didn't like women friends, didn't want, and I was like, something's wrong with this. So I decided to do healing work on my mother, like the traumas I experienced from her, all of it. Like it was really painful. And finally, once that was done, women started flocking into my life, like not just regular women, but empowered women who were like, and so I was like, this is like magic. It really does work when you do this kind of healing on this level.
Thank you so much, Dyan. So there's so much more to learn, and Dyan's got so much more to share with you on her page. So I hope you'll all go there and learn some more on this, because that, like she said, it's like it is the most instrumental, most important thing you'll ever do to heal yourself.
If everybody, did inner work all the time, the world would be so much better.
Yeah. We would be so much better first, and then, of course, we would be better to each other. All right. Next we have Ari. Please go ahead.
Hi, Dan. Can you hear me? Okay?
Yeah.
Hi. Sorry, I missed the first 15 minutes, so I hope I'm not repeating something that you already said. But my question is about indigeneity and blood quanta and whiteness. Because this is really where so many of the regressive leftists are coming from. And so, for instance, my father's family, they're Mizrahi from Iraq, and my mother's family, they're Ashkenazi. And so I constantly hear stuff like, you're Mizrahi? Oh, you're okay then. But, if I say, my mother's Ashkenazi, you get the opposite reaction. And then it's like, my father is pure Mizrahi. So is he twice as good as I am? It's so ridiculous how this has gone to. And the other thing, so for instance, I watched the series on PBS about Native Americans with the buffalo and so forth. And most of the Native Americans that were on the show, they could completely pass as white,
Yeah.
So this is just a fact of where we are. And, but they will say, we don't want to be judged by blood quanta tests, because we see ourselves, the way we assess tribal affiliation is if you join our tribe, you're part of our tribe, whether it's through marriage or that's traditionally the way it's always been. But then I saw the comments from many Native American groups, and they don't give us that courtesy, that we are a tribe too. We're not pure, there's no purity there.
Right.
But they want to subject us to blood quanta test and brownness tests. Right. And I just find it so absurd. How do you reconcile all this?
Well, it comes with wisdom, right? And maturity. Like you just grow out of that black and white thinking. Some people never do. So for me, indigeneity is your connection to the land and also, keeping up your traditions or like for the Hebrew people, like every native story is different. So we need to understand that. So for the Jewish story is different. They resurrected their ancient language. They went back, they went back to their ancestral homeland. They keep up with their traditions, oral traditions for thousands of years. To me, this already speaks, you don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to tell them, yes, I will submit to your DNA test. You don't have to do that. You don't owe them any explanation. They recently changed the definition of Zionism on Wikipedia. So now it's saying it's a colonial project. I mean, by def I don't know, there's just a lot of truth distortion. And like Yasmin was saying, you really have to just stay true to yourself. When you go into these forums, go in there saying, I am the tribe of Judah. Like, this is my tribe. You don't need to explain anything more than that. You don't owe them anything else except that to identify as your tribe. So that's what I would do. I wouldn't submit to any of their gaslighting. And it's unfortunate how a lot of these like the native spaces, and we're really trying to fight that. I think like really trying to like get them to see that the Jewish people are indigenous peoples. They're a tribe, and it's one of the ancient peoples. So it just got convoluted along the way, and that's part of the battle, of the ideological battle that we have to, all of us here who are kind of speaking up for the truth are going through. It's part of it.
Beautifully
Thank you,
said.
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
it.
It's neocolonialism. Oh, I'm reading the chat. Sorry.
Yeah, I love it. Reject the premise. Don't play their purity tests. I'm not
Yeah.
playing that game. Yeah. All right, we have one more question from Katya.
Hello.
Hello.
My question is maybe like about myself to person, but sometimes I feel like jealous maybe when I see people who can identify themselves like one, I don't know, ethnicity, let's say, or nationality or something, because I am a full great mix of everything. And sometimes I'm wondering how to like unravel of all of that and to come to some whole person, because sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I'm Jewish. I'm Jewish because some of my like ancestors were Jewish. Some of my relatives are Jewish. But also I have like some I don't know how to pronounce it in English actually, like shaman from Siberia, or some dispossessed people from Russia. And this is like at least three different generational traumas in one person. So how to deal with this, if you have any advice?
Yeah, you have to, self-awareness is number one, right? Awareness of the patterns, recognizing the patterns, ancestral patterns, recognizing how they play out in your life. And so you can kind of use that as a compass to know what you need to look into and decide to unravel and maybe heal. So, for example, if somebody is attracting the same type of person all the time in their relationships, that's a message from your subconscious that you're attracting a certain type of person, because why? There's something in you that needs to be healed that is attracting that. So that's what I would go by. I would go by like what you're aware of at that given moment, or that flavor of the week, the theme of the week or the month, and kind of remember that once you have your awareness, you can set your intention. But here's kind of the caveat. You kind of have to be careful what you wish for. So, for example, for me, I wished for the love of my life, my one true love, the most perfect partner. I didn't know what I was asking for, and it flipped my life upside down, destroyed my entire way of life, my being, my beliefs, and took me there. I had to like, you know, I didn't know that that's what I was asking for. So, but you can also say like, you know what? I just want to keep this casual. I don't want to go through anything crazy. You can intend that. People don't realize that their intention is just as powerful as their intuition. You know, it's actually like kind of like the representation of the left brain and the right brain. It has to be balanced. So in a lot of like the energy work that I do, I balance both. I use my intention and my intuition to find out what it is, you know, and then I use the intention to shift it, if that makes sense. So if you're dealing, and I know a lot of people like you who have like different lineages and all of these things, you just have to take what is showing up for you. Like, how is it showing up in your life? And that's kind of like a good marker to start with, like what is real for you, instead of trying to dig like their history and their past when it's not even affecting you, but they are showing up in your genes. Just, you know, it might not be direct, but you are experiencing their stuff. So yeah. I would just go with that.
Yeah. And be prepared, Katya, because you're going to find something in your nervous system and you're like, I have to investigate this, be curious about it, figure out what these patterns are. Why am I doing this? And then you're going to solve it and you're going to be like, whew, I'm all good now. No, you're not.
Exactly.
There's more. It's so exhausting. Once you start doing that work, it's like every time you find something else, you're like, oh my God, here we go again. Like it's
like opening Pandora's box.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, over time, once you get used to it, once you get used to like being like, oh, okay, self-awareness. Okay, ready. Like use my tools. If you have a table, like imagine a table and you have all these different spiritual healing tools or emotion healing tools, whatever it is that resonates with you, and you have it ready, you can just be like, okay, this is what I'm going to use for this, and you make it a habit. And over time, it becomes like nothing. It's so, it's like the first couple of years, it may feel like you're drowning, you know, just like crashing in the waves. But over time, it's like you're just going to float with the occasional wave splashing, and it's not a big deal. And then you know how to deal with it.
Well, with you as a Sherpa, possibly, but I know I'm not there yet. But so many people in the chat have been asking about where they can follow you, how they can learn about the work that you do, how they can get involved. So can you just share that with us now? Because people are impatient to wait for us to share that in the description. Yes. Tell them now so they can all run and follow you.
Okay, so my website is where you can reach me when I get suspended from my social media accounts, which happens often. You can reach me at iamtheportal.com. Not I'm the portal. It's actually like you're the portal, but I don't know. I just bought the domain name. iamtheportal.com. That's where you can actually contact me and get to my email. Because if you reach out to me on social media, I might not get it. I receive so much spam, it's hard for me to keep up. But you can also follow me on Instagram, Magenta Indigena .com, just at Magenta Indigena. And yeah, Facebook recently suspended me. I just got my Facebook back. I don't know. It's my second account, so I don't really mess with it. But the best way to get a hold of me would be through my website, and I can, link you to where you can register to these events and things like this. I'm really doing this like to help the collective. I really feel like that's why I was aligned with, Islam, and I learned about the Abrahamic religions, because this is part of my life purpose. Like it just is. It fell into my lap, and I'm just like, I'm here to help heal whatever this is that we're going through. So, please reach out if you're, if you want to see. If you want to help, like even with the energy clearing of what we're doing, and see what it is that this group is doing that I'm running, you're welcome to check it out. But yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. So iamtheportal.com. Thank you so much, Dyan. Before I let you go, I just want to make sure, because I've been asking you a lot of questions and I haven't really given you a chance to just share maybe if there was something that you wanted to talk about, or some last parting words of advice or wisdom that you wanted to share with everybody who's listening. So you can go ahead and conclude for us now. Yeah,
I feel like we still have a long road ahead, but I am, optimistic to a fault. I am by default always optimistic, and I know that light will win. I know truth will win. I just don't believe we would let evil win. And so whatever this evil thing is that's surfacing, and it's really like trying to do its best. It's like working overtime, right? It's like I'm thinking of this one lyrics. It's like the devil's working double time in all of his jobs. That's what it feels like. So whatever it is that you're doing, whatever it is that you're passionate, you wake up feeling like you want to do it. You know, I've reached out to people who I'm like, if you want to create content, I'll teach you how. Like, so I'm also like working in the smart. I'm really good with technology, so I also use this to my disposal to like help people like figure things out and how to get the word out, etc. So we're all in this together. And I'm lucky that I'm on this side. I really, you know, I really see it. For me, there's no doubt about it. I have no cognitive dissonance now. So, you know, I'm really thankful for everybody who can see the truth. Like I just, you know, when it seems so hopeless sometimes. And I'm glad that we're all in this together. And I'm glad that there's people out there, you know, who can see it. So, yeah.
And I'm grateful too, and I'm grateful for you. And you're absolutely correct. Like when you're on the side of truth, it just feels peaceful. Because when I was on the other side, I never felt peaceful. You always got your stomach churning, like, you know, this just doesn't feel right. There's something wrong. Maybe you don't have the words for it or the understanding or the research or the knowledge, but your gut knows that this isn't right. And so to be in a place where your body is at peace, your mind is at peace, it's like I will not ever let anything or anyone disrupt this. You know, it doesn't matter what kinds of death threats they throw at me or whatever. It's like, go ahead, keep screaming, do what you will, kill me if you need to. It's fine, but I am not going to give up having this kind of inner peace. I'm going to continue to speak my truth.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dyan, for being an inspiration to all of us and for helping to heal the collective and for being this space where we can all turn to and get that healing. We really appreciate it so much. I am definitely going to be signing up. I need you as my Sherpa, both on a personal and on a collective level. So thank you so much. And
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you to everyone who came here today to support Dyan, and maybe we'll see you at her next session.
Thank you. Thank you, Yasmine. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone, for showing up today.
You take care, lovely.
Bye.
Bye.